Welcome back to my almost daily podcast, Truth to be Told, where I look at current and historic events and give them a slightly different perspective. So it's been a very busy day today at the BBC. The ongoing threat of legal action by Donald Trump in relation to the doctored video is still hanging over the British Broadcasting Corporation. And today we have been told that the new person in charge, Samir Shah, who's the chairman of the BBC and who's taking control after the two other bosses have left the organization. He now sent a memo to the employees of the BBC, I suppose with an attempt to encourage them and install confidence and pride in those BBC employees. It seems to me that Mr. Shah assumes that the vast majority, if not all, the employees of the BBC are expecting him to fight the case against Donald Trump. Now, I find this rather strange because I would have thought the employees of the BBC will want to broadcast and create and educate and deliver news rather than be proud of their organization taking on the US president. What I think most people would have expected of the BBC to do now and with the leadership of Mr. Shah is to deliver a proper apology to Donald Trump and offer some compensation and put the matter behind them as soon as possible. It is very clear that the BBC did mess it up here, and the last thing that people want to see is this organization getting involved in very expensive litigation. And I can tell you that currently I have a client who is fighting a defamation case in Florida, and it is pretty expensive. And even if the BBC think that they have got a good case, at best they have got a 50-50. In Florida, there isn't an automatic right for the winning party to recover at least some of its legal costs from the losing party, which means if the BBC fights this case and lose, it means that taxpayers would have lost millions of pounds. So let's delve right into the memo and see what Mr. Shah has actually said. This is what he said. I want to be very clear with you. Our position is not changed. There is no basis for a defamation case, and we are determined to fight this. We are determined to fight it. So this is the second time that he says that they're determined to fight it and defend the BBC vigorously. Now, I wonder what Mr. Shah means when he says to defend the BBC. What is exactly Mr. Shah is defending here? What is the BBC defending him? The manipulation of a video, misinformation that clearly came out as a result of that video. The BBC is not the victim here. The victim here is Donald Trump, whether you like Donald Trump or not. The BBC is certainly not the victim, and the BBC is not being attacked here. What is being attacked here is the truth and the fairness and the duty of the BBC to deliver news in a fair way. And again, it doesn't really matter which side of the political map you are. What does matter here is the BBC simply failed to deliver it. Okay, so perhaps that was a mistake and they didn't really mean to do it. So just apologize and put these things behind you. But then he goes on and saying, whilst we, of course, remaining mindful of the cost to license payer. Now, I don't see how Mr. Shah and the BBC can reconcile these two statements. How, on one hand, they are determined to fight this. I mean, determined to fight this means that they are willing to put everything into this. Determined to fight it means they're going to be fighting on and on and on, whilst at the same time being mindful of the license fee payout. Now, how much is a license fee is willing to put towards this? If you ask me, and I believe most reasonable people in the UK, they will say that, well, perhaps they hate Donald Trump, or they hate the BBC, or they hate both, or they love both. They are not really willing for the hard-earned money to be put towards fighting this case. This is not the license fee is all about. And you cannot really be determined to fight a case and at the same time be mindful of the cost. I can tell you as a lawyer, you either do this or you do that. If you are determined to fight something, you will go all the way. If you are mindful of the cost, then it is very likely that you are not going to go all the way, that you are going to settle the case, so you might as well do so as soon as possible, rather than let the case go on and on and on, because every day that this case is going on is costing the license fee payers a lot of money. Every time that a lawyer is looking at a statement, every time a lawyer is delivering a letter, every time that somebody's phone up the law firm or the law firms and say, look, can you get us prepared for this? There is a cost. The most logical way to deal with the situation is issue an apology, perhaps with the support of the Prime Minister or the Foreign Office or whoever is willing to help, offer a little bit of compensation and put these things behind. So for those perhaps who are not that familiar with the BBC, so the BBC is a publicly funded organization. Every household in Great Britain has to pay a license fee, which is about $150 a year, give or take. And the legal basis for the existence of the BBC is the BBC Charter, which is a document that contains the obligations, the purpose and the obligations of the BBC. So let's have a look at the BBC Charter and see how it perhaps fits with Mr. Shah's memo to the BBC's employees. So the first thing about the Charter is it contains a mission statement, and this is what it says. The BBC core mission is explicitly to act in the public interest, serving all audiences through the provision of impartial, high-quality services. You be the judge whether on this occasion the BBC has been impartial and or provided high-quality service. Now, the BBC has got 6 specifically stated purposes, which are providing impartial news, learning, providing creative and distinctive content, and reflecting UK diversity, and representing the UK to the world. Again, you judge for yourself whether you feel that on this occasion the BBC had provided impartial news, whether it provided quality learning. It certainly, some would argue, has been creative and provided distinctive content, whether the BBC had represented the UK to the world in a respectable way. Now, when the BBC makes decisions such as the decision that they are determined to fight the case against Donald Trump, the Charter states they must ensure that the benefit, whether direct or indirect, outweigh the cost. And they also must consider economic, social, and the wider public interest, not just that of the BBC. And I just wonder whether on this occasion the decision to fight the case with Donald Trump actually ensures that the benefit outweigh the cost. I'm not sure what the benefits are. Again, the BBC could have just issued an apology, offer a little bit of money, and put the matter behind us. And also it must consider economic, social, and the wider public interest, not just that of the BBC itself. Again, I might question whether the decision to fight Donald Trump is something that is in the public interest or whether it is in the BBC's interest. And I just get the feeling that this memo actually a sign that what Mr. Shah is doing here is thinking about the interests of the BBC rather than the wider public interest. Now, when it comes to money, this is what the Charter says about the obligations of the BBC. BBC must exercise a rigorous stewardship of public money and high standard of public conduct, value for money, and feasibility, which means whenever the BBC whatever they do has to be sustainable, so they cannot just throw good money after bad. And again, one has to ask whether the decision to fight the case against Donald Trump, as opposed to offering a sincere apology and perhaps making an offer, a reasonable offer of amend, wouldn't be a better way to ensure that BBC is actually sustainable in terms of finances, because fighting a legal case in Florida is going to drain out the BBC wallets very, very quickly. And finally, what the charter says about financial management is that the license fee income must be spent efficiently in line with the principles that we outlined earlier. And any commercial activities are explicitly not shouldn't be funded by the license fee. Is this something that should be funded by license payers? I'm not so sure about that. And lastly, in terms of accountability, the BBC must be transparent and consult the public. And perhaps it might be a good idea to consult the public, not just the employees of the BBC. Perhaps the BBC should be sending all the license-paying households a questionnaire, some sort of a referendum to ask whether people believe that the BBC should be fighting this case, or simply apologize and move on. Now, I don't really know who is going to win the case, the BBC or Donald Trump. But what I do know is that a reasonable license-paying individual in the United Kingdom will think very carefully before entering into litigation. People work very, very hard for the money, and it is not really an option for most people to use other people's money in order to finance litigation. Hence the reason why sometimes my client, as well as other lawyers' clients, even though they may have a reasonably good case, they may take the decision, which is a commercial decision and a reasonable decision, to let things go. And the reason for this is mainly the cost. So there's no reason, I would think, that the BBC should be using other people's money in order to defend the case that can pretty much be gone away very, very quickly just by doing the right thing. But we're just going to have to wait and see. I hope you enjoyed watching this short podcast, and I'll see you again in the next day or two.